So you made the decision to invest in a grain mill, but now how to take care of it for daily maintenance so that it will last you for years to come. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel we talk about real whole grains from a biblical perspective, and that definitely includes many different types of grain mills. So in this video, I'm actually going to be showing you how I maintain my grain mills on a fairly regular basis, as well as some deep cleaning methods that I do when I feel the need for that. Now, as you can see, I actually have multiple grain mills, and these are my two electric mills. I had Miss Wondermill, which is an impact mill, and then Miss Nancy Nutrimill Harvest, which is a stone grind mill. And I'm going to be showing you the different ways that I maintain both an impact mill and a stone grind mill. And many of these methods will be fairly applicable, even if you have a different type of impact mill or a different type of stone mill. So first I'm going to show you what I do with the impact mill, my Wondermill. Each time I mill, the daily maintenance that I use for that, and then deep cleaning methods as well. And then we'll get to how I maintain my stone grind mill. First up, let's talk about impact mills. Now again, this is the Wondermill impact mill that I have. The Nutrimill Classic is also another very popular impact mill. And so while it will not be exactly the same, some of these principles may also apply. Before starting, as always, be sure to read your manuals to see what they have to say, because I don't want you voiding out any sort of warranty that you may be under. As you can see, for my Wondermill, I actually got her refurbished. That's why it says Whisper Mill on the front, but it has a Wondermill motor in it. So that's why this one's going to be looking different than if you have a brand new one. To start with, let me just show you what I do each time that I mill my wheat in here. Now, of course, according to the manual and everything, and even on here, for the Wondermill, this is different than the Nutrimill Classic. You turn it on first and then add your grains. And so once that's done milling, here's what I do. So you can see I already have just a little bit of grains milled already. And with this, you can see how you get some flour in here, all around this thing, and in this little canister as well. And this little canister, it just holds really, really fine flour. Now, I do not necessarily do this every single time I mill, but I do it very often, because eventually you'll just get a lot of flour in here. And if you don't clean this little canister out, this will really start collecting flour and things could start backing up. So after I mill my grains, I generally keep a little mason jar with these types of little brushes here. This is just one of those El Cheapo little paint brushes, bristle brushes, and you just take this, and I just like to brush out all the bits of flour that came out of here. So, and you get all around. I even brush off the little canister here. Now again, if I'm ever in a hurry, I sometimes skip this step. It's not the end of the world. But you also want to make sure you check the little hose thing here. Make sure nothing here is really clogged up. You can kind of do a little check here. And also removing this foam. This is important to check on regularly, especially if the foam circle, as you can see, I need a new one. If it starts coming up and coming loose, it's because there's too much flour that is built up in here. So again, a little paintbrush, and I just put it into my bowl. If you are not doing this every time you mill, you may want to put this in just a separate bowl, because there may be multiple types of grains and flours in here, and that's okay. We like to get that really clean. And then I just take this little guy off here, carefully clean this part as well. And this is really handy to have, because again, what's going in this little canister is very, very fine flour. And again, we just want to brush all this off. And what this does is, whenever you're keeping up with this on a fairly regular basis, it's just going to keep things from getting clogged, keep things just running smoothly, all of those things. And you're not necessarily going for perfection here, but just enough where you make sure that this isn't completely full and all of that. And then we just pop it back on. Make sure the little foam circle is back on, the hose is intact, and there you go with this. And then we just continue making bread as normal. Now, every now and then you may want to look at where the hose goes. If this starts getting a little clogged, make sure you completely unplug the machine. And then you may want to get in there with a little brush to brush that out, or maybe a toothpick or something very thin. But again, definitely make sure it's unplugged because you do not want this turning on while you do this. Now, as far as the outside of the machine, if you notice, I have not been using water, and there's a big reason why. Remember, you never, ever, ever want your grain mills to get wet because that's going to clog the grains. It's not going to mill, and you can really mess up your mill. So I rarely ever use water unless I absolutely have to. I take the lid part that goes on here. You can see that gets a little dusty. You can, maintaining, just use a dry cloth to get any dust, flour, things like that off of it. Same within here. You can always go in with a cloth, and on the outside as well. Again, I always do this when it's unplugged to make sure I don't actually turn this on. And just kind of give it a good little wipe down. You may need here in these little crevices, maybe an old dry toothbrush, or again, one of these things to kind of get in the little creases here. And this is mainly just for keeping it looking pretty. If you want to use water, if things are really filthy, the only things that I recommend of ever getting wet is the lid, and then only this part of the canister. You do not want to ever use water on this part because water can get in this hose. It's difficult to dry, and again, any grains that are wet, it's not going to turn out pretty. So I never use water on this. Maybe once a year, I will thoroughly wash this and this with just some warm soapy water, and then really let it dry. Make sure it's completely dry before then hooking it up and using it again. So that's basically it with the impact mills. I find with the impact mills, the daily maintenance is what I do more of than with my stone grind mills, which we'll get to in just a bit. But just keeping it, we're making sure that flour isn't clogging up in here or in your little canister on the inside. And then occasionally you will need to replace the little foamy part here. I need to do that myself to keep that fresh and it not flying out all over the place. Now, let's get to our stone grind mills. Real quick interruption here to talk about today's sponsor for this video, and that is Pleasant Hill Grain. If you're looking for a place that has all the different types of grain mills available, I highly recommend Pleasant Hill Grain. They not only have the Wondermill, but they also have the Nutrimill, as well as the Nutrimill Harvest, Como mills. They are the exclusive dealer for the Como mills, as well as mock mills and other grain mills as well. So they're a perfect place if you're wanting side-by-side comparisons for the grain mills. Now, the great thing about shopping with Pleasant Hill Grain is they have excellent customer service. They are wonderful at helping you answer your questions, and they are a small family-owned business. So you're not giving your money to Amazon, Walmart, all those big companies. And while you're shopping at Pleasant Hill Grain, be sure to also pick up your bread pans, your grains, and all the things that you need to get started on your milling journey. So head on over to grainsandgrit.com/PHG to experience the pleasure and quality of Pleasant Hill Grain for yourself. So here we are with the Nutrimill Harvest. Again, this is a stone grind mill, and this one does not have as much daily maintenance that I do compared to my impact mill whenever I use her. So the great thing about this is I think this was the brush that came with it. I have multiple brushes and I forget what came with what mill. But your stone mill may have come with a little brush to be able to use, which is great. So with my stone grind mill, when I use this, the main thing that I do is this section up here. While the wheat berries are grinding up, as it lowers, I generally just take this little brush and brush away any sort of little flour dust, corn dust, whatever I'm milling, to keep this top fresh. And then doing it while it's on, it's going down into into the spout and into the bowl that I'm milling in. And that's kind of the main thing to do with the stone grind mill, is I just want to keep this kind of clean and just kind of dust free, things like that. Of course, keeping your lids on your mills after you use them, very crucial to make sure nothing that you do not want is falling into your grain mills. Another thing you may want to do, again, depending on your mill that you have, is this part right here, the spout that the grains come out of. That's the beauty of this thing. So you just take this one fits up here perfectly, and like a chimney sweep, you just kind of work this, make sure you have a bowl underneath or something, because a little bit of flour will come out of here. I do not do this every single time I use the Nutrimill Harvest. I use it if I start noticing it gets clogged, or especially if I'm switching grains, like from wheat berries to corn, I may go ahead and just do a quick sweep through there, to make sure nothing is there. But otherwise, there's not really much daily maintenance. What you do need to be concerned about with a stone mill is maintaining the stones. And this will all depend on how often you are using your stone mill, and maybe just personal preference. So you can do this once a month, maybe even once a quarter. I use mine all the time, and I really only do this maybe once a quarter. And what that is grinding in some white rice into your stone grind mill to really clean out those stones. But before I do that though, I do like to go ahead and take this out and go ahead and take out the stone. So with the Nutrimill Harvest, the top stone easily comes out, and you can see, good thing I checked this, I actually have some grains that have not grinded all the way. I did use this recently. So with that, I first take this carefully, just dump this out, get any of those type of grains. Also be using a brush and kind of brushing it out. There's a ton of little crevices in here, so this might be a little awkward and difficult, but kind of go in here and then just start brushing this out as best as you can. This is especially important. You may have to do this if you find that grains, for whatever reason, have gotten clogged. They're not milling all the way, things like that. So you may have to do this part a bit sooner. The biggest difficulty with this is not light. So you may want a helper if you need to hold it while you clean it. It's really up to you. But with that, we got that clean, and now we have the top stone, which you can see mine is not really dirty because I kind of go through this once a month where I clean it out. And here we just scrape or brush the top stone. And the reason why we do this is eventually you may start noticing, where there's a film of flour here. If you start noticing your grains, they're just not grinding up like they used to, you may just want to check the stones to see if they've got a lot of flour still stuck on them. But otherwise, you put this back on. And again, always read your manufacturer's instructions just to make sure. Okay, and that's the initial clean. And then possibly, you definitely want to do this when you first get your stone grind mill. It usually is in the manual to do this. But every now and then, you may want to send some white rice through your mill. And what the white rice does is, for some reason, white rice, not brown rice, really gets the stones and stuff like that clean, and you just mill it on through and discard it. So let's just do that right now. And all that's required is just like 1 cup of white rice to send through your mill on a fine setting. So again, according to your instructions, for me with the Nutrimill Harvest, you have to turn it on first and then add your grains. Got it on a fine setting. All right, and I'll wait until I don't hear anything grinding anymore. Turn it off, and then use your little brush here. Make sure everything is out of here. And that white rice flour looks really good. It's nice and fine coming through here. It's interesting because when you grind white rice, it does actually feel a little coarse, which is probably why we use it to clean off our grains, or grain mills. If you see a lot of like crazy gunk coming into your rice flour, you may want to run through this again. I've never seen that, but just keep that in mind. But that's something that I do. Again, if you start noticing your grain mill, it's just, if you've got a lot of grit or maybe something is going on unusual with your stone grind mill, you may just need to send some white rice through, clean your stones, just to make sure everything is being maintained properly. And then as far as just keeping the mill actually looking pretty, once again, I like to keep water away from my grain mills as much as possible. So just a dry microfiber cloth, and you can just use this to dust around, because here, with at least the Nutrimill Harvest, you know, there's all these little crevices here that might collect flour dust, and you can just get rid of those. And there you go. One thing I like to have in my milling station is actually keeping one of these microfiber cloths in there with me. So that way, if I make a little mess, you know, I can immediately clean it up, the table cleaned off, wipe down my grain mills if there's flour on the outside, things like that. So there you have it, how I maintain my grain mills on a fairly every milling time basis, as well as some deep cleaning methods whenever you feel the need. As always, just be sure to read your manuals. They are usually very good at telling you how to maintain and deep clean your mills. And again, when you get a stone mill, they usually recommend first thing that you mill is some white rice to begin with. As always, hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Be sure to ask any questions in the comments below. And be sure to head on over to grainsandgrit.com/PHG to see all the wonderful grain mills that they have available. And as always, y'all have a wonderful day. Bye.